yet.
You're going to probably need physical therapy, right?
Yes, yeah.
But
So long process, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, seems as we get older, things heal so much slower.
But we did the Bondi Bronte walk yesterday. We managed the whole promenade walk.
Oh, that's amazing. Kol hakavod.
Yeah, today I'm feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, but good.
Thank
you. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll fly into it after my muted sentiments for the last 5 minutes. So it's Yom HaShoah, as we know, a very difficult day on the Jewish calendar. I thought it would be interesting to see, what is within Torah Rav Kook. How does that work? Obviously, Rav Kook passed away before the Shoah, and so we don't know what he said or what he would have said. He saw terrible things going on in Europe in his time. But in terms of the magnitude of the Holocaust, which was incomparable to anything that ever came before, that we don't know. So I started doing a little bit of research and searching, and I found this article so I started seeing what Rav RZY Kook said, and I found some different places of different things that he said, but I thought it'd be interesting to read from here of Zalman Melamed, who he wrote this in 2008, but he's the Rosh Hashiva of Beit El, and Baruch Hashem, he's still active and an amazing leader. So he over here quotes Rav RZY Kook, and then I found this over here by my colleague at Koren, Rav Ziegler, and he writes more around. He does talk a little bit about Rav RZY Kook, but more about Rav Soloveitchik's approach. So we don't have a lot of time to go into it all, but let's sort of like open up to those two different aspects. I think somewhat Rav RZY Kook's approach is a little bit controversial, but I think we'll see. Maybe even within Rav Soloveitchik, he's also saying a little bit of that, even though he's saying something very different. Okay, so that's what we'll try to do. A little bit of the legacy of Torah Rav Kook, not from him himself, but from his son and his students. Rav Zalman was a great student, is a great student of Rav RZY Kook. So this appears on RZY's site. We'll go for it like that. Okay, so Shoah b'mabat shel emunah. So the Holocaust with the perspective of emunah. So the subheading is already, almost difficult. That it's like to nullify the reality of the exile and to build Israel from anew. Ein tzarich adam ha'mamin l'stakal, ech tzarich adam ha'mamin l'stakal al Shoah. So he asks why how is it that the believing person should look at the Shoah? So as a general principle, it's upon us to reflect on the creations of Hashem and on the actions of Hashem and to learn from them. So he says, and even, right, so we've got this imperative to look at the creations of Hashem and see the ways of the world and to try and understand it. And even though it's going to often be way above us because the ways of Hashem are higher than our ways and his thoughts are greater than our thoughts, and we will never be able to get to the depth of his godly wisdom and the way that he conducts the world. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean, just because we'll never be able to get to that full understanding of how Hashem runs the world, doesn't mean that we are exempt from trying to understand. And he says we even obligated to litbonen b'maseh Hashem v'b'hanagato k'katuv b'Torah. He says there's an imperative in the Torah in Devarim where it says Zchor yomot olam binu shnot dor v'dor. It says explicitly that you have to remember the days of the world and understand the years of each generation. It brings now from Tilim mi chacham v'yishmor elea v'yitbonu chasdei Hashem. Who is it that's wise and guards these things, and he should reflect on the kindnesses of Hashem. Omnam, so he says, never, indeed, lo alechem lecha ligmor, aval en ata ben chorin lebatal mimena. So the famous phrase from Pirkei Avot, where the sages tell us that maybe that we can't get to the end of doing what we intend to do, that doesn't exempt us. So whether it's trying to build something, or trying to understand something, or trying to learn something, or even in our case over here of Melamed's applying it to this case of understanding the Holocaust, we'll never be able to understand it, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't begin the journey and try. We shouldn't just accept it all passively. We have to try. לא לכם לגמור להבין את כל עומק הכוונה האלוקית. To understand the God's intentions, we'll never get to the end. כי אין זה ביכולתך. It's not in our ability. אבל אין אתה בן חורין לבטל להיפטר ממה שיש ביכולתך להבין. But if there is that which we can understand, we're not exempt from that. ועל ידי כך להכיר את הגדולה האלוקית, להכיר את גודל ההנהגה האלוקית בעולם. So he's talking in general terms. Therefore, we have to push ourselves to try and understand Hashem's world as much as possible, and to appreciate his grandness and his greatness. Obviously, when it comes to the Holocaust, it's hard to talk about Hashem's Hanagai Lokit in those terms, but he was just painting this as a general principle for now. So, Moreno Rabbeinu Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kohen Kook Zecher Tzadi Bracha writes a Churban and Rosh Shoah Yachad im Abinyan Shel Geula. So, Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook, when he looked at the Holocaust and trying to come to terms with it, he looked at it also within the same picture as the building of redemption. The exile was destroyed, and the diaspora was wiped out. At the exact same time that happens, or just after that, we see that we're living in the times that Eretz Israel is being built by the nation. At the same moment that the diaspora is being uprooted, we have this contrast where things are being planted, Israel is being planted and growing in its land. So the shuls that were in the diaspora were destroyed. While those are being destroyed, you see the shuls in Eretz Israel starting to be built. So he brings this interesting Gemara from Masechet Megillah, that in the future the shuls in Chutz La'aretz yakru mimkomam v'sheyikvu be'Eretz Israel. So there's this, like, really over there, it's like this image and this vision of the end of days, that in the future all the shuls in Chutz La'aretz will be uprooted from their place and they'll be affixed in Eretz Israel. So he says, so that's the vision that we have. Always Rav Riskin, I remember he said, I don't know if it was one, it was like I remember he said this to us, but I don't know if it was based on a question that like a shaliach under him had asked or something like that. Can you see the text that I'm reading or not? Oh wow, doing really well today. Okay. What is going on with this computer? Okay. There we go. Hello, Wayne, after Sterling Shachrit. Thanks for joining us. So Rav Riskin always used to say that when it comes to this Gemara, I think he said someone once asked him, what do you do? He's living in Chutz La'aretz for so long. He's like a shaliach. I think that was the example. And he misses Eretz Israel. How can he contend with that? Like, he knows he's doing important work, but ultimately he's not living in Israel, and that's part of his aspirations and his belief that that's where he needs to be. So Rav Riskin quoted this Gemara that says in the future all of the Batei Knesset will be mitgalgal. They'll all like roll up towards and be uprooted and move towards Eretz Israel. So he said that's a sign that it's the same equivalent of an embassy, right? Like when you have an embassy of America in Israel, when you get there, it's like you're on American soil, even though you're in Israel. Or lehefech, you step into an Israeli embassy, you consider an Israeli citizen within your Israel like sort of domicile. And like anybody else, right? Like that's what the embassies are. I remember these movies of back in the day where someone's being attacked and chased, and suddenly they get to the gate of the embassy and they finally get in, and it's like, they're safe, because even within some other country, they're within their domicile, within their country. So he said that's what the shaliach needs to know, is that based on this Gemara, where it shows that all the shuls are going to become uprooted and then come to Israel, it shows that all the shuls are actually embassies of Israel spiritually, and therefore they can be seen like that. I think I don't know if he quoted Rav Ovadia, who said something similar like that. But that's generally when we talk about this Gemara. It's like a beautiful vision of all the shuls coming at the end of days to return to their native habitat, their indigenous homeland. But in this context, Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook is saying something very different. He's saying that we've got this vision, and unfortunately, it was actually manifest, but in a way that goes mitkamim b'tzura charifa v'nora'a. That's being manifest in a way that's very fierce and sharp, but often mezazeh in the most shocking of ways. So whether we like it or not, these words of the sages, we never envisioned them to be manifest in this way, but they're being manifest. The soft be'eretz Yisrael nikvaim b'teknitziot shenekru michutz la'aretz. He says at the end of the day, the shuls that were in Chutz La'aretz are now becoming communities and shuls in Israel. Yeah. Sarah's saying like Ashel, so you've got like the Petersburg community, the seats and the Torah and the Bima were all moved from there. I remember I once spoke about it in a shul in South Africa that the future of the Jewish people is metaphysically and physically in Israel, and you see that like by even when you have these Sifrei Torah that get moved, or furniture that gets moved, like this furniture gets a new lease on life because it's now serving the Jews in Israel. So now he brings another Gemara, a harsh one from Masechet Ketubot. He says the acknowledgement of this negative reality of living in Chutz La'aretz, where we know from the end of Ketubot it says anybody who lives in Chutz La'aretz is as if they're worshipping idol worship. So things like that the sages said brought a yearning towards it for all of Israel, El Eretz Yisrael. He says, and more than anything, it comes to expression with the great leaders and the Rabbanim in Chutz La'aretz. Chutz La'aretz was foreign for them. All the yearning and the aspiration was to return and build in Eretz Yisrael. So the depth of this knowledge comes and appears in the hands of Hashem in a strong and powerful way. אל שפת המציאות הזו של אי אפשר לחיות בחוץ לארץ ותקרא נצלק מן הגויים ומארצות הם לשוב ולבנות בארץ חיינו נחלת אבותינו ארץ השם. And it brought us to the edge of this reality of this fact that of the impossibility of living in Chutz La'aretz, and the acknowledgement that we needed to become detached from the goyim and their land, and return to build the inheritance of our fathers and our heritage, Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so that's sort of what he's saying, what Rav Tzvi Yehuda says, and now he explains it. So this is the word that I've seen lots of different people talking about, the way Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook talks about the Shoah, and they all use the same expression of this nituach, of this operation, like surgery. So Rav Tzvi Yehuda Shoah nituach norav ayom, a horrible and crazy operation, kashe u'machiv, difficult and painful, mezazeh, shocking. Aval im kol hakoshi hanora shebo, with all this tremendous pain, im kol hazazu hamachiv, with all the painful shock. The goal of the operation is to make the body healthy. To stop the going down and descent on the descent of the aspirate of to stop the descent of exile, and to build Eretz Yisrael mechadash be'eretz mitam. Akira tzorech hanacha. So he uses like a concept from Masechet Shabbat, that if you're lifting up something not to rest it, it's like not the same type of melacha. We always look at the destructive melachot of Shabbat. They're only actually melachot when they serve a positive thing, like when you tear something in order to put it back together, or you erase something in order to write on it. Those are like the full melachot. So something destructive only is termed a proper action when its ultimate end is to build. So Rav Tzvi Kook is very boldly, right, obviously for obvious reasons, we say it's like very bold and audacious to say such a thing, to find any sort of reasoning within within what happened in the Holocaust. But he's saying there was akira, there was destruction, there was removal, there was uprooting. But ultimately, he's able to say this from a place of seeing Eretz Yisrael being built up, and then he can say these things: akira tzorech hanacha, akira michutz la'aretz tzorech hanacha be'Eretz Yisrael, uprooting in Chutz La'aretz in order to rest in Eretz Yisrael. Akira l'tzorech netiyah, it's uprooting in order to plant, right? Sometimes you have to weed out and you have to uproot lots of things in the ground in order to plant new things. So it's very bold, and therefore Rav Melamed gives this parish over here. Makel b'shum ofen et chumrat harishut hazavatit shel hanatzim hagerim emanim ve'ozreihem. This perspective does not alleviate or lighten in any shape or form the severity of the horrific evil of the German Nazis and those who helped them. Saying that perhaps the things that befell the Jewish people in Europe had some sort of cosmic reason or cosmic purpose, that doesn't in any way excuse the horrific actions of the Nazis, and they should be remembered, as the scourge of the earth forever. This is the subject on its own. This perspective is full of emunah. It teaches us. So according to RZY Kook and Rav Melamed, these horrific trials, travails, and troubles should be seen as the birth pangs of the redemption. Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach. Shebaim letzorech hagula, they come in order to bring the redemption. Uimena yivashan, from that will be saved. Matzara ba Yeshua, from the pain comes the redemption. And now he quotes the Maral in RZY Yisrael. Kodem shemitchayesh havaya chadasha, whenever before something new comes into existence, tzarich lihiyot he'eder ubitul havaya hakodemet. There needs to be some sort of disappearance and nullification of the existing reality. Bitul tzorech hitchadshut, nullification for the sake of renewal. I thought of my wife. She always says when we're on the cusp of something good, you always feel, shouldn't be like a self-curse, but on the cusp of something good, there's always something like strange or difficult that happens. There's like a kapara that happens before the good things. So this is, the Maral is saying this in a very powerful way in RZY Yisrael, that for something new to come into the world, the space needs to be made by some sort of nullification that happens. So so you could say Rav Tzvi Kook is saying, for the greatness of the return of Eretz Yisrael and that reality to come into the world, there's sort of this cosmic destruction that happens to make space for it. And we continue and live this beautiful life in the land of our livelihood, Eretz Hashem, the land of Hashem. We go and we build. We move forward and we redeem ourselves with the help of Hashem. We gather in the exiles of Am Yisrael, uboneh Yerushalayim, and build Yerushalayim. Okay, so that was Rav Tzvi Kook. I think it's really hard to hear those words. On the one hand, there's some sort of nechama, consolation in saying that, if you look at it from the process of elimination, imagine if we had to try to reflect on the Shoah and we weren't all sitting here in Eretz Yisrael, or my mother in an embassy in Australia. Imagine that. Imagine trying to reflect on the Shoah, or where we would be had we not had Eretz Yisrael. There's no way we can't have some sort of hakarat hatov and I saw, like, I don't know, tzitut from Netanyahu speaking last night. He's saying, we're not living in the times of the Shoah, as horrific as the things happening to Am Yisrael now are. We living in our land with our people, with our army, with our with a functioning. We were attacked, but we weren't destroyed. We were attacked horrifically, but we were able to respond on October 7th, and if you look at the cosmic, world, global political sphere, we actually refer to Ed's second war that happened, right? Like the second aspect of the war, not just The first one we lost, October 7th, we lost. We still have hostages there, and we're still paying the price, and we will for a long time. But the second war of like the ring of fire of Iran and the global threat, that we're winning. So you look at it from that perspective. We are not. It's not the day after the Shoah where we suddenly walking out decimated and destroyed and not knowing what the future will hold for the Jewish people. So from that perspective, you can sort of align with what Rav Tzvi Kook is saying, and he's very bold to say these things. But at the same time, and you can see Rav Zalman Melamed saying these things as well. It's not so simple. It's like it's a difficult thing to say, because there's no way that we should feel entitled to bring any justification to that. Now I know we're basically out of time, but I still wanted to just show you this, where Rav Soloveitchik takes a very different approach, and he says, in general, when we talk about in his Kol Dodi Dofek, and this is Rav Ziegler quoting. Rav Ziegler is also have the schut of working with him. He's the head of Magid and at Koren, which is the label that puts out Rabbi Sachs's work, and he was the one that conceived Yom Echad B'October, the book. So he's an amazing Talmid Chacham, and he was very close to Rav Lichtenstein, and brought a lot of his books into the world. So he's also a student of Rav Soloveitchik over here, and talks about Kol Dodi Dofek. And in Kol Dodi Dofek, what he says over here, just in short, there's no such thing as learning Rav Soloveitchik quickly. So, but basically, some aspects that he says here is one with the Shoah. We can't understand the ways of Hashem. We can't understand his the way he sees things. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in here, but it's not helpful. And I'll just say in short a couple of things he says here. The one thing he says is that when we focus on these tragedies and we look at these times, there's the Brit Goral and the Brit Ye'ud that he talks about. This famous concept that he brings in is that the covenant of fate and the covenant of destiny. So the covenant of fate is like we're Jews because look at all these things that have happened to us. We're passive, and we look at the reality outside as this objective thing that's happened to us. And we're Jews because we suffer together. That's the definition of who we are. We're just persecuted for all the years. And that's one way of looking at things, but it doesn't empower you and it doesn't help you, and you're stuck. And he says, on the contrast, there's the other way of looking at things, which is the covenant of destiny, which is, okay, these things have happened to us. What is our purpose in the world? Holly, you can go, don't worry. Go live your destiny in Eretz Israel. But that's what he says. He says the focus is we can't understand the Holocaust, and we shouldn't even try to understand the Holocaust. It's something within God's reckonings that is far from our understanding. I'll send these 2 articles on the group. But what we can understand is, what do we do next? It's quite a Viktor Frankl approach, right? Also thought of it's exactly the words that everybody was quoting in the name of Hirsch Goldberg, where got the siren. Yes. Holly, I thought you were just going to a dentist appointment. I didn't realize you were going to go stand outside. Sorry. I think there's something very symbolic, right? That for this siren, we didn't run inside; we ran outside. Especially based on what we're saying now, right? It's like there's the Brit Yehud, and we're not living in the day after the Holocaust. We're living what's it now? Is exactly 80 years after the Holocaust.
I
And
just
yeah, why?
I just phoned Candace because she's overseas, and I put the speaker on so that she could hear the sirens. So I said, "There's a siren." She goes, "Where are you? Do you have are you in the months?" I said, "No, not that kind of siren."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Crazy that we contrast against sirens. So just to end that off, so Rav Soloveitchik's got his Brit Goral versus Brit Yehud, the fate of destiny versus the covenant of destiny versus the covenant of fate, and he doesn't go in the direction of Rav Tzvi Yehuda to say we can Eretz Yisrael is the sort of the antidote and the answer to that, but he says live Eretz Yisrael because that's live your Jewish life because that's that's sort of your response. It's not the answer, but it's your response. That's how you choose. So as I was saying, a lot of the hostages were quoting what Hirsch Goldberg was telling them, where you've got a why you can handle anyhow, which is basically comes out of Viktor Frankl's teachings. So I guess that's our response. You can if you're in the Rav Tzvi Yehuda camp, which is a difficult camp to step into, but quite a comfortable camp to live in because you've got, he gives you the reason. So if you're able to be in that, you've got the reason. You can close your eyes and say, okay, there was a purpose to it. But if you don't take that step in, then you've got Rav Soloveitchik who says we've got to live within, which is typical of a Rav Kook philosophy versus a Rav Soloveitchik philosophy. Rav Kook's able to take lots of different things and find like a harmony and a synergy. Rav Soloveitchik he shows you how to live within the oscillation, between the conflicts. It's always like the distinction between a Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Kook philosophy, and you see that here as well, where Rav Soloveitchik is saying, no, we can't. I'm not going to give you any medicine to deal with the pain of the Holocaust, but I'm going to tell you that you need to run. You need to do exercise, right? Like you need to live. That's your antidote. I'm not going to tell you how to deal with all the evil and the terrible and the broken and the pain inside. I can't take that away from you, but I'm going to show you how you need to live a life of destiny and covenant and hope and building and construction, and you carry on holding both those spaces but moving forward.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining.
Yvonne, will you send those links, please?
Yeah, of course. Okay. Okay. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Mm.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Ma. Thanks for joining from Australia. It's commitment. I'll call you.